Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Deputy President. Well, there is no greater example of the incompetence and the danger those opposite present to the Australian people for the Labor government than they're allowing 80 and possibly up to 330 people in detention because they've been denied visas on character grounds. Some of them are violent rapists and murderers. Now, you start to think, well, how could this possibly have happened? But unfortunately, it was entirely predictable and preventable. But this government did not prepare. So what's the situation? Last week, the High Court overturned a 20-year precedent that has underpinned the migration policy of both sides of government. The issue the government now faced, and again this hasn't been a secret hearing by the High Court, this has been well known and entirely predictable outcome. So the plaintiff in the High Court itself, who made this decision, committed a heinous child sex offence. And so far we've heard in the media, and not from this government, but we've heard in the media that at least 80 others have been released into the community. So while I said the government wasn't prepared, well, one minister was prepared, the Minister for Immigration, because he prepared by ensuring that these 80 had visas pre-prepared for them. And not only visas pre-prepared for them, they also had hotel rooms booked for them. So they made sure they had visas and hotel rooms, but they did not think to ensure that they did not get out of detention in the first place. The High Court hasn't even delivered its reasons yet. They could have been detained a bit further. And so while the Minister for Immigration was rolling out the red carpet for these 80 and possibly nearly another 300 more, what was the Attorney-General doing? What was the Minister for Home Affairs doing? Well, by their own admission, they were doing absolutely nothing. They could have actually started thinking, well, what happens if this does happen, which again was entirely predictable. They could have started thinking about, well, we'll use the time until we get the decisions from the High Court. We can prepare some legislation, possibly under our current terrorism framework, and we can have it ready. Because guess what? The Senate was sitting last week. The House is also sitting this week. We have rushed through urgent legislation through both chambers in previous years under the previous government, and we could have done it here now. But again, this incompetent government, not only are they running our economy and down in less than 18 months and making it very hard for Australians to afford rent, their mortgage, their grocery bills, but they are also now not keeping Australians safe. So what's happened in Western Australia? Well, again, we've heard this from the West Australian, not from those opposite. But apparently 50 of those 80 were released from Yonge Hills Detention Centre, just out of Perth, into an outer suburb in Perth, into a hotel, where they're all sort of currently now sitting in a hotel. Where are they staying? Who's safeguarding them? I mean, who would think putting 50 people who largely have criminal records and present a threat to the Australian community, you can throw them all in a cheap motel and give them a few bucks and say, on your way. And I mean, it is almost inconceivable how incompetent but how dangerous those opposite are. So the refugee advocate for those 50 in Perth, presumably, said this yesterday. He warned that many were at a huge risk of imminent homelessness. Well, what could go wrong once they get kicked out of the hotel, having 50 people who most have all been denied entry and visas into Australia on character grounds, and many because they have committed the most heinous crimes? So what does Labor do? Yeah, let's roll the carpet out, let's give them a visa, let's put them in a hotel or a motel for a while. We won't worry about what happens to them afterwards. And they have no legislation in this place this week, which they could well have done to keep West Australians and to keep Australians safe. I tell you what, they've done all of this in less than 18 months. In less than 18 months. They're destroying the economy, they're destroying people's lives, and they're now releasing murderers and rapists into the suburbs of Perth and elsewhere. Shame on you all.
Put the question.